Welcome back into the Academy. We're getting ready for our second best of 200 Thieves Academy, the top #1 team right now for the summer split, taking on Team Liquid Academy, the team that is trying hot on their heels to be able to usurp that #1 spot from them. But right now, it is going to be definitely a test of strength for which of these teams is going to remain on top.
Yeah, excruciatingly solid performances basically throughout the split. Still now, especially with EG just having lost yesterday in that 0-2, it is now 100 Thieves who are completely undefeated in the split. Hopefully Team Liquid trying to change that today with these rosters being the way that they are. Team Liquid trying to still acclimate, I think, to Dokla, who's taken over the role of Jenkins. Still that carry, but with a little bit of a different pool. That certainly has made some effect to this team, but I think they're really starting to put the pieces together.
Yeah, you definitely can tell that they've had some hiccups. Just think back to last week when they actually suffered the 0-2 against Evil Geniuses Academy. Definitely one of those ones where you were just wondering on paper, because I think the game too had this early lead. It looked great from them. They even got to play their Swain in the bot lane for Yon. They got the Sejuani once more for Armeo, but it just didn't fully click like it had previously.
Yeah, the composition still has quite a bit of things to kind of kick out, right? Like the tires still need kicked, everything needs to be put together a little bit. But I think slowly they're encroaching upon that territory. But this is a roadblock that it might need a little bit more than just a bit of that, because 100 Thieves is an entirely different animal. Every single position firing on all cylinders. Some of the best players and individually across their team play is still really good as well. They're very decisive. Their drafts look really nice. One of my favorite parts about this team is Bloom's champion pool, which looks way different than pretty much every other support's champion pool in the entirety of the league. It's one of my favorite aspects about this team.
Yeah, it's been playing a bunch of that Brahms, constantly going through with it, where they get the Sejuani for Kenvi, even like I think the Kindred a couple times just to make sure it's even easier. I'm really curious to see how they're going to be able to go for this, because that Kindred has been taken away from Kenvi. Not going to be allowed to play it this time around, nor the Vars for Luger. And these are very interesting bans, as opposed to going for what we've really seen as like the clearly defined strong meta champions. Team Liquid are trying to take away what they deem the strengths of 100 Thieves Academy instead.
Yeah, I know last week Kenvi played a really mean Kindred game, and while I think some of it got a little bit lost in the in some technical difficulties, there was like this really competitive game between these two teams, and a lot of it was based around from 100 Thieves side playing around Kenvi's Kindred, which even back into the initial days when Kenvi was the first to step onto the Academy roster, and even back into their like scouting ground, proving ground days way back in the day, this Kindred pick was something that Kenvi was known for. So it's not shocking that they want to get that comfort away. But again, the Xin Zhao slipping through this draft, teams have the response for it.
And I do think this is a really smart call coming in from Team Liquid, making sure that they're taking away what they know is going to be a powerful combination in Kenvi on Xin Zhao and Poom onto Braum. Already taken away one of those elements. The Braum might be open, but Kindred, the normal fallback, is not on the table. So I'm curious to see what 100 Thieves do when they don't have that. The Lulu, a great takeaway, again, to make sure there's not a different combination of the Xin Zhao with something really powerful. But Karma actually is banned, so they don't even have that as a fallback.
Ooh. Okay, may see the Olaf, which would be a really awesome pairing alongside that. I talked about this a little bit, that this patch, the buffs were there. Olaf was still kind of just barely hanging on, every once in a while getting picked. This is another one, though, that again can take that fight up against the Xin Zhao, and also has a spectacular team fighting with pretty much the opposite, where Xin Zhao pushes everybody away with the big AoE. It is the opposite coming through from this Diana pick for Kenvi, who's going to be able to work with this Lulu and try to aggress against this jungle matchup that's been so good. The Xin Zhao extremely powerful. Kenvi probably wants to attack lanes a lot more, though, and hopefully the Lulu's helping that.
And look at that. We get the combination of Aphelios Thresh that we were talking about last series actually drafted here. But then it's opposed against the Juggermaw. Already getting Lulu and Kog'Maw. Kind of tells us that we'd expect to see this Lulu in the bot lane to be able to pair up with Kog'Maw. But I'm really interested to see if 100 Thieves actually continue down that path. If they don't try it instead to just get another enchanter to really be able to buff up this Kog'Maw.
I wonder if Mr. Golden Glue had this in his back pocket, because you're thinking to yourself, like, okay, Lulu might go into a solo lane with the Diana pick. It's powerful. It's enough to contest against the Xin Zhao. But instead, they swap over to the Juggermaw, like you said, extremely potent combo in the bottom lane. Can aggress against the Thresh really heavily, which is something that has to take a few steps back now, just so you don't get abused by this permanent damage. At level 2, the W, the E that comes out from Kog'Maw for the range advantage, as well as Lulu's just one of the top damage in the entire game, regardless, with those level 2 abilities, is obscene to be able to burst out the Aphelios or the Thresh if they're not careful. So that priority of lane and getting that level 2 quickly for bottom side is something to keep your eyes on.
I'm even curious to see if it's going to be flexed again. If they're just like, you know, we could have the Kog'Maw Lulu bot lane. But what about we get a Taric instead for Boom the bot lane? Put that Lulu mid lane. Ryoma has been able to get that solo kill as a Lulu mid lane before. I wouldn't put it past Under Thieves really trying to index to make sure that Luger is going to be the one in the prime position to carry.
And I still remember when like Luger came over, I didn't really know much about him. I kind of heard the name before. And it was during Proving Grounds when I got to cast this team previously when he was playing Kai'Sa, and I think covered more distance with those Kai'Sa ultimates jumping into the middle of a team. That made me so hype on this guy because he's just always willing to go forward in fights, always willing to make the aggressive moves to put that damage out. And I think that's come really full circle, has some of the most kills. I think he's top 2 in kills across all of Academy, if not number 1 himself. So Luger been putting in those reps, and now the Jace taken away from Dokla. That's been the comfort for Dokla the entire split, still flexible between top and mid. I think that should probably indicate that Lulu's heading into the bottom lane just so they can make sure to get a solo lane counter.
I agree. I think that is what they're going to do here, just to make it a little bit more easy for themselves. It is definitely a curious takeaway, though, this Jace, taking it from Dokla. And if that LeBlanc is locked in, I almost feel like Team Liquid are trying to dare Ryoma to go on to this Lulu, one of the classic counters towards LeBlanc. Now they have the opportunity, if they want to be able to swap it up, get a different type of support, and make it so that they actually do have the Lulu into one of the classic matchups.
It's an interesting thought process, and then it's okay, what do you go to at support for the side of Boom if he's not going to be running the likes of that Lulu? You know, the comfort has been there with, like, it's been a lot of Taric, and it's been a lot of Alistar, and then it's also been a lot of other champions. Okay, instead they actually go to Gragas. This is curious because I think Gragas could work as a decent support into Thresh, but it seems as though Tenacity wants that response, and now they're doing some flexing with Jace into the mid lane to make sure to avoid that Wukong matchup that Dokla opted for. So a lot of shenanigans being played from the side of 100 Thieves to make sure they get themselves some solid matchups.
Very interesting to see. That's why I was kind of wondering. I'm like, this Gragas has got to go top lane because you already have the Diana. Well, yeah, technically you could flex Diana into mid lane, which makes more sense with how they've gone about it. And I'm wondering if Tenacity is going to go for more of that boring tank Gragas top side, or if it's going to be more the exciting AP Gragas, trying to see if he can get all this burst damage with Kenvi on top of it as well.
Now, yesterday, I know we had the same discussion about Gragas, where it's like, okay, we want the exciting AP, and yesterday made sense. I think this time, with a Diana and a Lulu and a Kog'Maw with mixed damage, I hate to say it, but I think tank is a little bit better, because it also allows you to soak the engage from things like the Wukong and things like the Xin Zhao, and when you drop the explosive cast in the middle of the team, yes, Hayri can sometimes access some of the backliners, but it means that Thresh and Aphelios are both going to be in some tough places to be if Tenacity takes this really big frontline role to make sure that his team, and then we run into the same problem we had in the previous game with EG's comp, where they were running this kind of dive with Xin Zhao and combined with the likes of the LeBlanc, that they don't have this spectacular frontline to really soak damage, which means if pieces start to fall off, there's nothing to prevent all of the dominoes from tipping down. And you gotta love the level 1 preparations here coming out from the side of Team Liquid, not wanting that in.
I do respect it. I like seeing them set that up ready, just in case there is going to be some sort of shenaniganery coming in from 100 Thieves. But they come up empty. The net has no fish in it, so they have to go back to the drawing board, send everyone into their respective lanes. In fact, even have Armeo start on the top half of the map. That's actually really curious to me, because I want to see how he's going to be able to play the Xin Zhao into Kenvi.
Again, I'm curious whether or not there's any preparation whatsoever, because you see, like, Team Liquid, their bottom lane right here, with that ward being placed so far up, they really desperately want to not get destroyed at that level 2 mark that we talked about a little bit, which is also why Kenvi's not starting on top side. I think that's the biggest reason both junglers aren't on these, like, bottom side camps that typically sometimes you start at for the better leash, and it's because that level 2 priority is humongous for both bot lanes to make sure they're going to stay safe, or even more so that you can generate aggression against the other side. That's why immediately into the lane, you see both of these pairings. They're just immediately going to fight for presence to make sure they're the ones that get the level 2 first.
Ooh, trade back and forth. The Ryoma going to be the one with the better end of the trade, even though Theory does have the corrupting pots, will be able to get a lot of that health back to be able to continue the skirmish potential into Ryoma. I wouldn't be surprised if we see It's the fight for level 2 between these two, and once someone gets it, it's probably... Oh, they both got it in tandem, so not actually going to see that full-on aggression.
Not quite. We see, like, Luger's able to use W. That's Flash.
Oh, Ayla, what a flash right there, trying to be able to get as much as possible out of both Luger and Boom. 2 summons blown, sure, both out of Ayla, but I think that's worth if you're trying to get this Kog'Maw.
Yeah, the W right there from Kog'Maw is used at level 1 by Luger, but as soon as it's burnt out, that's Ayla going in on top of that to make sure that they put that pressure on. And this ability for this, like, Lulu and this Kog'Maw combination to actually put on pressure at level 2 was taken away because, of course, TL's bot lane was able to walk up in the lane, get the initial engagement on this minions, and be able to walk away like that. And so that forced a back out from Luger. It doesn't look like you're going to get the shove to deny too many minions, which is good for Luger, but still, really great game plan from Yeon and Ayla.
I like it. I really like it. You're trying to make sure that Luger is not going to be a reliable source for them to have as that Juggernaut. Even if this composition isn't the typical Juggernaut composition where you have the 2 Enchanter supports to make sure you can buff up Luger, it's still a Lulu with Kog'Maw. One of those powerful duos in the bot lane that you oftentimes see, and making sure that they don't have that backup plan that they fall back to if it's the late game. If the game continues to scale up, it's going to be critical for Team Liquid to try to find this game one.
Interesting.
They might get themselves caught out. Oh no, they're just going to sacrifice Ayla. No flash, no dash, no escape. First blood picked up by Kenvi pretty easily, as Hayri not going to be able to get the root. Instead, it has to completely book it with Armeo in tow.
Very interesting right there that they were able to get so many members to end up on bottom side. Boom never left until you had Kenvi heading over towards bot side because it was a full clear that had come out, same as the Xin Zhao. I'm curious if Armeo is able to get that stop scuttle. You're seeing what happened right here where Ryoma had first move after the shove because he just have better wave clear against the LeBlanc, and that allows Ryoma to come. I also like that he turned immediately off of Armeo to go onto Thresh to make sure that's going to come through. And the kill also going onto Diana is really, really nice for 100 Thieves earlier stages of the game because that's more of your ganking threat that's going to have an impact on the map than something like the Jace who's going to be sitting scaling with this tier.
Completely agree. Completely agree. This really is beneficial for 100 Thieves Academy. Great read in the play. Getting this early bit of gold. You can even see it from the Hex Tech alternator coming in from Kenvi. And so it's working out really well so far for the side of 100 Thieves. Even if, it is the trade of 2 Scuttle Craps picked up by Armeo, it's still nice to be able to get that early gold influx into your jungler.
It also allowed a back a little faster for Kenvi right here because it meant that Armeo had to go up the top side to punish that. Armeo has not backed yet, which means that Kenvi gets this Hextech alternator, which is a fair amount of burst. I was going to say that one ward near that Raptor pit is all that's going to be able to save Hayri because Ryoma's there as well, so you could try to just like blitz that lane with this Diana phase combination, but they weren't able to make it happen because of that nice vision that everyone's going down. But still, I'm waiting on the back timer here from Xin Zhao because that power is not going to be there to match the Diana if they happen to run into each other. And since this bot side is relatively cleared out, if Kenvi ends up on bottom side fast enough to catch this Xin Zhao, there could be some real problems with that back. The screen could turn a lot grayer than I think it would be necessary from the side of Armeo.
Right now, Luger, he has the Ignite ticking, and he showed up as well. The flash in from Yeon. Yeon, you're way too far now. Even though you have Armeo right in tow, you're going to die to Diana. No nice knockoff coming in, but finally, Poom was able to silence Yeon. Looking for Armeo, but the Blast Cone will be able to keep him alive. And Team Liquid, that dive, no.
Really great play from Kenvi to be able to read all of this that happened. Again, this is because you're able to clear camps faster, you got that back timer faster, you have more stats. Even if Luger goes down, you still, I think, are perfectly fine with that as long as Kenvi pulls the kills. That time it was Boom who was able to get everything. They also denied the kill that had come out. So that's all the resources burnt off of Yeon for some repeat ganks, and Armeo only just now getting back onto the map for the first time with that Iron Spike whip, as Diana has been able to clear enough camps to stay ahead in terms of gold and everything else. Really clean plays from Kenvi, just completely controlling this map over top of Armeo.
The fact they're able to get Kenvi in this position, he's going to make sure that right now he just cleans up a little bit mid lane, but he's going to be able to beat out Xin Zhao when Xin Zhao wants to skirmish, wants to be able to fight. This is kind of why you want something like a Diana to make sure that the Xin Zhao isn't going to be a problem.
Yeah. Also, I'm going to draw your attention because I think it's important for you to understand that there's like a tier in Tenacity's inventory top lane, which means perhaps this won't be tanked. Maybe this will just be full AP Gragas for that tier. It's also possible it gets sold off or it just stays in the inventory for some mana consumption. We won't really know for a hot minute at least. But what it does mean is that there's a lot of sustain in Tenacity's playing this weak side, which is really interesting because when I knew Tenacity is this massive, like, I'm going to like body every single person all the time in every lane always. When he and Niles used to clash, it was always this really entertaining dynamic where both of them just would not stop auto attack trading, and they'd both be at like 10 health before the wave even arrived or something like that. But he's become this really amazing like weak side, no resource soaked top laner who's just incredible at applying this skill, applying his abilities across the map without needing this influx of gold, without needing to just body people needlessly. It's been a fantastic little growth track to watch as Tenacity's become one of the better top laners here in Academy.
It's been fantastic. I love seeing this kind of growth from a player, being able to change up his style, being able to constantly do well regardless of what meta it is. Like you said, being that player who used to try to always find fights, always try to be able to 1v1 his opponents. It reminds me a lot of Niles, where Niles always wants to be able to find these early fights. The only difference is Tenacity has learned to pivot away from that, having to be able to get these solo kills early on and actually be able to play around the team a bit more.
Nice find on bottom side here from the side of Team Liquid as well, because this bottom lane has been shoving in pretty consistently. It's a solid advantage for Gion with about 2 waves of experience. I know the wave's just now equalizing, so it is exactly 2 waves or something along akin to that with the 6 and 7 and whatever you want to count with those minions. And it's been constant pushing from the Aphelios as well, and a lot of this still came off the back of that level 2, where it was a lot of pressure. So Ayla still having impact in this laning phase as you had the level 6 ready for Aphelios, only just now to Luger tip over. And 100 Thieves, they're here first. There shouldn't be much of a play. They can rush this down before Xin Zhao gets here. That is
going to be able to get it, but the fight might continue. Jokeman going to be flashing over the wall with the side clone. Moonfall does nothing to stop the kill going over to Armeo. They all have to flash away, but they do get the eye for the trade of 1 life.
That they do. 3 for 3 right there. A lot of early game power between a Xin Zhao, a Wukong with ultimate, and also a LeBlanc, so they're able to use that to get the 1 pick off. The trade is for the Rift Herald, which is pretty big. That is something that 100 Thieves could use to very easily equalize that gold, if not find themselves a new advantage. The problem is, again, this top side was where your strength was. I'd like to see them throw some more into it, but so far with like now Xin Zhao pulling that kill, that's really troublesome, because now that's top side pressure that can be put on. Bottom side's already winning for the side of Team Liquid, and they're looking pretty good inside of this game. I'm really happy with where Team Liquid's been able to take this composition, especially with that dragon. Eventually that stacking mechanism is going to come into play that 100 Thieves is going to have to challenge.
And it's a great thing to see Armeo be the one to get the kill, because we talked about and highlighted the fact that Envy getting the early kill could have been enough to stop the Xin Zhao from being a problem. Not now. Not with that kill now in your inventory. Being a lot happier for the side of Team Liquid, making sure that Armeo is going to be this player who can start to really thrive. And in fact, we've been seeing that throughout this Academy split. This has been one of his strongest performances, and this is a veteran player we've seen for some time. But honestly, I gotta say, his growth here in 2021 has been immense.
And it has. Really being forced into a position that not a lot of players would be forced into, having to take on now the Academy role with the LCS role. So big props to him being able to accomplish so much in the jungle. All of these young players that we've seen previously in LCS and Academy, and their growth has been just amazing to watch. And that's the best part of watching this league, is just being able to watch and see as these players develop into superstars, as Armeo being able to help support the LCS roster, and some of these other guys. I mean, just half a season ago, obviously 100 Thieves was competitive. Now they're looking like the #1 team, if not just the #1 team in Academy. Slowly that growth's going to end up getting them LCS spots and things like that, and we will see a resurgence of some talent inside of the region, which is really nice to see.
I mean, it's like there's talent in North America, right? I constantly say this. It's almost like it. You know, you develop the talent, players will be there. And we're seeing that here from these 2 organizations, especially Team Liquid and 100 Thieves. Being able to develop a lot of these players to be able to succeed. Jenkins being the other one who had been the top laner for the Academy team, now going up and doing well for the LCS team. And I want to see that continuing. I want to see how these players are going to continue to grow. You can see here Tenacity in a bit of a trade against Dokla, who's trying to make a name for himself once more, coming back into the Academy scene.
Nasty's got to be careful because Xin Zhao is controlling this top side right now. I was actually really worried for Ryoma right there for a second because he didn't know, but Ayla and also Armeo were kind of pinchering him from both sides, but thankfully the Jay's damage with the Serrated Dirk is enough to push out that wave. Now Kenvi going to try to put some damage, or some gold specifically, into pushing this bottom tower so that you can get all this gold. My apologies. So the gold is going into Luger to pull off these plays with this Rift Herald that's going to be coming through.
Hey, you want to get this Cogma in that spot to be able to win. Flashed away just to get away from that Moonfall. Not really wanting to take the damage of Moonlight out of John. This is a smart call. You get a lot of plates, a lot of gold picked up for Luger. this Kog'Maw in a much better position. He's already almost finished that call as well. It's going to be pretty big, but now Envy fighting with Hayri, diving back in, looking to see how he's going to be able to fight, but it's going to be the complete disengage from Hayri. All the while, Armeo found Boom and the TP in. Hayri's pretty low, might not be able to fight back and help out Armeo, not unless Zokla's here to be able to scare away the members of 100 Thieves Academy so they can try to see if they can retain control around the Dragon Pit. But Tenacity taking a lot of damage, has to get the Wild Growth. Zokla's still in the middle of everybody with the Cyclone, getting a lot of damage on the Ryoma, but not going to be able to get enough with the Crescent Strike. Try to see if he can at least disengage and get the kill on Tenacity. Now Hayri, he's back in the fight. They're looking for the dive. Kenby, he's not going to be able to escape this time around. Not from the assassin Hayri. Ryoma getting flashed in by Yon. Yon will die to the turret, but it is a huge fight for Team Liquid.
I think 100 Thieves just dramatically overstaying right here. Not only can be re-entering that fight at the end, but also Ryoma, Tenacity, kind of poking their nose where they weren't allowed to. They weren't willing to give up a ton of pressure. Now, this does force resets from the side of Team Liquid, and it gives bottom tower over to Luger. So they're putting a bunch of resources into making sure Luger's protected on bottom side, getting this tower, getting this gold, even maybe competing for what will be a dragon that's going to be spawning here in a couple of seconds. But still, 100 Thieves definitely overstepped their bounds. It came here. There was a point where this could have broken very easily. Right about now, Tenacity could have just walked away, taken hands, and said, okay, no more. Instead, goes back in and allows Dokla and Armeo to find this engagement where this works really well. Now, Ryoma and Tenacity almost fight their way out of this situation, which is crazy. But again, Kenby has to re-enter to help support the rest of his team. Won't get too much because he doesn't have mana to really work with. And then, of course, Luger just can't ever access this fight out of fear of being burst out.
When you look at the mini-map, it's just the bot lane for 100 Thieves had no ability to join in that fight at all. They were completely zoned away. And in fact, I can understand a little bit of where 100 Thieves were coming from. They thought maybe Luger Poom could be able to join in. They thought they had Hayri, who had to back off. He was too low as LeBlanc to be able to dive in. But what they didn't respect was how long the disengage had been there for Team Liquid to then have Hayri TP back into the fight and find those beautiful flank angles.
It's a position where, like, 100 Thieves pulled off a little bit. Again, like, Luger has gotten back into this game, respectively. You see the farm is no longer really that low. Actually, is starting to get a bit of an advantage, and is going to continue to push plates and stuff. Now plates are gone, towers are going to burn a lot easier. So 100 Thieves is really heavily leaning into that aspect of this game, trying to make sure this Kog'Maw is exactly where they want it to be competitive inside of this game with the Lulu. So this is a Juggernaut composition, even though they don't have the perfect setup for it, or at least they're relying on it to be. You see Tenacity also really heavily pushing that bottom wave. We'll have plenty of time for Dokla to be stuck down there to maybe do something with in the mid lane or even into the jungle if Kenby wanted to. Defense was too good.
Nice cleanse coming in from Luger. He was able to get a lot of damage on Yon as well. Tom thought he could step up, thought he had the safety, but you always got to be careful, even if he's not fully built just yet. Juggernaut is not like he used to be way back in the day, you know, where it took forever to be able to scale up. Needs really 1-2 items, and Juggernaut is a lot scarier. His mid game is a lot more impressive than people realize.
No, absolutely. Especially with the range that you get. That's something that's completely underrated about Kog'Maw. That W range increase makes it so easy to put out damage into frontliners or even like mid-fight champions who are a little bit further in the back. Things like LeBlanc or Aphelios, being able to throw autos into them makes the challenge a lot easier for this champion. Also, now has the Gale Force, so it's a lot of mobility added. The Flash is still available. They're giving Rift Herald because they needed resets in a couple of different places. So a lot of these objectives are being given away so that 100 Thieves laners are given time to actually continue to scale up. So right now, Monomune is going to be on the horizon here for Ryoma to make sure that's going to be in place. You also have like the tier stacking with the Everfrost for Tenacity. When these items start to get completed, that's when 100 Thieves is going to start hitting a really big power spike inside of this comp. And now, you see the reason why.
Moonlight was able to help out. Oh, nice hook, no cleanse. He had the flash, but he cannot get away from Yon. They pick up a kill on the big old B. Mayor should be able to survive. The pass is not quite enough. There is the potential snipe, but Ryoma's not even passing. Instead, just trying to be able to get something evened up on the map.
I was going to say, this is the reason why we see Team Liquid start to play very aggressively, because if you're able to shut that down, it's big. Now, Kenby is on the back foot here, going to find something. They've split Yon off completely. There's
trying
no
to get towards the lantern, but he just can't. Too much damage in from Kenby Poom as a combination. That's the third death for Yon. He might have been able to get free, but he has been overextending and overstaying his welcomes.
In fact, it's actually not even Kraken Slayer that's going to come out for I actually respect this idea from Eon to not go for Kraken Slayer, instead to go for Shield Bow, just so that you have some of the defenses that are available to make sure you don't just get blown up like that every single time that Kenvi finds his way into the backline. That's a nice response play from 100 Thieves, and even better Ryoma continuing to pull gold as well. It's not just the Juggernaut who scales really well, because the Jace, 2-3 items with this lethality build into no tanks really for the most part is going to be doing a ton of damage to anybody who's standing in front or even the champions behind to be able to dive, almost acting like a pseudo assassin in some cases. So there's multiple threats now from 100 Thieves that are getting some of this gold.
And you can see these macro plays coming in from 100 Thieves. Despite the fact that they are down a kill and that they're down 2 dragons, look at how they've been able to control these turrets, getting both tier 1s and both the side lanes, and the tier 1 mid lane is so close to death. It made sure that they can retain this 1,000 gold lead over Team Liquid, despite the proactivity we've been seeing in from this roster.
You saw the damage that can come out from the Juggernaut without anything else. I don't even know that the E was affixed right there from Boom, and that could have been a lot of damage onto Yeon, but it's just a W, couple of auto attacks here and there, and also the Gale Force was enough to chunk him down, probably 60% of his health. That's the fear you've got, is that burst damage is there. That doesn't mean the cooldown's out for the next 60 seconds, probably 70 seconds, something like that with the cooldown, but still, Luger is willing to play aggressively in some of these situations, as Kenvi competing for the Scuttle Crab can't quite find it, unfortunately.
Now, Armeo was able to win that smite fight. Now looks to see if they can jump onto Boom, who has the Wild Growth himself. Russian Strike comes in. The Moonlight was able to get a little bit of damage, but not enough explosive damage onto Boom. All the while, Luger has to use the cleanse to be able to get away, then be a bit too late to be able to dive back in himself.
Yeah, really tough. Luger was putting out some solid damage. I was terrified that chain from Ayla was going to be enough to actually bring him down, as Hiri was kind of gearing up for that. But thankfully, reinforcements from Kenvi and Ryoma were on the way, and they were able to protect their bottom lane as they had come in. I'm waiting for that Mikhails to come out from Boom as well, because that's almost going to be necessary here with the amount of CC that's been threatening Luger, so he doesn't have to burn this flashing cleanse every time something hits him.
Looking a bit dicey. Look at how low Luger and Boom are. They're trying to see if they can stay in the fight, but Hiri wanted to be able to get the assassination. Moonfall was completely whiffed, and the damage coming in from 100 Thieves gets onto no member, really, except for Hiri or Team Liquid, which means that Team Liquid have the inside track now onto this dragon so they can continue the dragon stacking.
100 Thieves isn't going to compete for it, which I can respect as well. This third dragon doesn't get you anything except for the flag strats on the dragon. It's not until the fourth that it's really going to end up mattering in the end. Now, they are going to be forced on the next one if they're not comfortable with it to actually give it away. I think Mountain Soul is even something you're okay with giving, just because of the amount of damage that you've got on the side of 100 Thieves and the lack of pure tankiness, because obviously Mountain Soul is going to give you some shielding and some tank stats, but it's not enough to get away from like a Kog'Maw and a Jace and a Diana and an AP Gragas' worth of damage. So maybe they even are willing to give that up if that's what they think is necessary for the rest of the game. But ideally, this next dragon is going to mean a lot for what 100 Thieves has to do, because if they give up Mountain Soul, it's a lot of combat stats they're going to be giving away to the enemy team that they're now allowed to use to go for things like Baron or things like fights and 5-on-5s that Team Liquid's been doing really well at so far.
Then also resetting too. These are always such important things when it comes around to these objectives on how you're going to be able to play. There is a good amount of hope that 100 Thieves can put out. You've already seen the damage that Luger's able to provide. You were talking about Ryoma too, but that's the thing. They need a lot of that damage to stick. They need a lot of that damage to make sure it can slowly but surely whittle down the health bars of Team Liquid. They have these shields and just even enough tankiness, they should be able to constantly be able to reset, constantly heal back, wait for the shield to come back, and then reset.
Oh, don't get me wrong, it's not ideal to give this Mountain Soul, right? Like, you definitely don't want to give it away, but if you have to, you can still stall this game, because late game Kog'Maw doesn't really care about the resistances in that shield, because he will have the damage to rip through it. Same with the rest of these champions. When you've got 4 damage carries, you're not as concerned about it as like an Infernal Soul, which would just allow the other team to out-damage you and rip through your health bars fast or something like that. But that's up to 100 Thieves to decide. It's just about whether they want to play for it, because now it's like, okay, where is your Kog'Maw going to be in about 4 minutes when this Mountain Soul is going to start to get contested? Are you going to have 2-3 items completed? Jace looks like you'll be about 3 items somewhere in that area, but I don't know that Kog'Maw is going to be anything past 2 at that point, which might not be enough.
We're trying to be able to beat GG here. 1v2, getting a little bit of damage. Envy goes golden. The Cyclone does not help out, so Ryoma was able to get a second goal, but it's traded for the tier 1 mid lane. Team Liquid making sure to answer across the map.
Well played across maps, both sides, trying to get something. Right there, you saw 100 Thieves. They're putting more resources into making sure Ryoma's actually getting a lot, which they've kind of adapted, because at first they were putting resources to make sure Luger was going to get into this game and really start to do damage.
Ooh,
Now they're comfortable. Look at that.
Yawn! Oh man, that is a lot of damage coming in from Luger. He didn't even care that there's a turret still standing. He nearly was able to get the kill underneath the tier 1. You talked about that damage in from Luger, and he is proving you right.
You see that it's not really necessary to continue to put resources after this first item. They've got plenty with the Kog'Maw, which is the base W and everything else. A little more attack speed probably could go a long way with the rest of what Boom's going to be bringing, and especially once Mikhail's is done pretty much set. So now Ryoma's the next target, trying to pull 3 items onto Ryoma to get this Jace into a position where when everybody gets hit with a shock blast and loses half their health bar, Luger can clean up from there, especially if Runans ends up getting completed. Now, first he has to take a stop at Wit's End, because unfortunately there's a ton of the burst damage that comes out from Heiri. But once that's gone, immediately now all of a sudden Luger gets to play aggressively once again.
Getting that Wit's End, as you mentioned, make sure just to be that much more tricky to actually assassinate for any member on the side of Team Liquid. Plus getting that extra bit of damage that you're able to have when you're attacking all fast like Kog'Maw do. It's going to make it so that I'm just wondering, even though it seems like Team Liquid have been doing a great job stacking up these dragons, making sure they're keeping some control, I'm just wondering, what can they do to actually get on top of Luger? Because I don't even see Tenacity as that AP threat. He's got Everfrost, which sure, yeah, you're going to be looking for the roots and whatnot, you get more damage, but he is about the peel for Luger. It's Kenvi and Ryoma who are going to be the ones actually diving into the backline.
Yeah, I think really, really heavily right now, Team Liquid's #1 way to try to win fights is with some really nasty flanks, because you've got fantastic champions to do that with. If Armao or Dokla get into the backline and you're able to break this team into pieces, if all of a sudden Luger's been thrown to the front line, or even worse, Pum has been thrown to the front line, there's so much of this composition that goes down really quickly to just the pure amount of damage that's in that initial burst, with like the Cyclone and everything else that comes out, Xin throwing that ultimate as well, and it unlocks Heiri to be able to focus targets as well. So Dokla or Mayo getting into the backline or getting into a mid-fight and breaking the team fight in half is enough to now separate Luger Boom from the front line and keep these champions like an AP Gragas, who is killable, things like Kenvi, who's killable as well, even though they've got Zhonya's, and they're allowed to be focused down before any access is had by the Kog'Maw to really carry a fight.
See here that when it's all about grouping together, it's difficult to actually get a lot of that damage to stick to Luger, stick to Kenvi. They even have that battle song to be able to try to get back into the fight. They're looking to see if they can have the flank come into the backline. As Tenacity had to go golden to be able to survive. They're waiting for Dokla. Dokla, though, cannot get into the backline just yet. They're waiting it out. Here goes Kenvi. The Moonfall was not able to connect at anybody. He had to go golden to be able to survive. They're looking to see if they can get the flash out of him. Press Strike was also used by Armeo, just absorbing a lot of the damage coming in from 100 Thieves all the while. Dokla still threatening that flank. Has to be careful because Tenacity realizes what he wants to be able to do. Does not want to let the monkey be able to do monkey things and be able to climb all up in the trees. Instead, they're trying to see if they can fight over who's going to be able to get the soul. It's over to Team Liquid. The fight's going to commence. Ryoma had to go golden. Ayla's going to be the first casualty as they dive into the backline, get the kill on Armeo. So many people are low on the set of 103s. Armeo, they're going to be able to get the kill in the backline onto at least Ryoma. But Dokla, he doesn't have the damage to be. Oh, he does! He takes down Tenacity with them, but only one member survives from Team Liquid. Luger is still up, and Baron is available.
4 for 2 is available, as is Kenvi, which means there's no real threat here. This is 100 Thieves. They weren't able to steal away the Mountain Drake with the smite that came out from Kenvi, who tried to blast Cone over, but they get this really big fight because you talked about, Leo, the flank needs to come in. Dokla found a nice entrance, but it's all in front. This was a tactics decision to put this Kog'Maw on the pit, allowed him to auto-attack as they moved through this fight. Ripped through everybody. Kenvi got shredded, no smite anymore, and threatened out onto Heiri.
Heiri looking to pull off a miracle. Had to flash over the wall. The flash coming in from Luger, trying to see if he can take him down with the Void Spittle, but it's only going to be the Mimic. But Heiri stopping the Baron, critical for Team Liquid.
My goodness. This is insane to think about right here, because right there, it was a hero play from Heiri to be able to stop Kenvi and the rest of 100 Thieves here between Luger and Boom from taking this Baron, and also actually sets up a really bad backline, because now Luger and Boom have to stay here, otherwise there's no chance that they could have to actually compete for the Baron. In fact, it doesn't really look like there's a lot of competition for 100 Thieves right now, as you see Jace is on the other side, unless Ryoma wants to try to TP in, but I think they're just giving this, they're now down Mountain Soul and Baron buff, their comp and team fight, but they are giving away a lot of resources here in just the last couple of minutes.
This has been really amazing stuff from Team Liquid here. Despite losing that last fight. They were able to get the Mountain Soul. Then after that, Hayri, God, man, I cannot believe getting the kill onto Kenvi. Sure, a little bit of assistance with the Baron buff. Just getting the kill onto the jungler is massive for them to then be able to reset on the map, get full control of vision, and then get the Baron.
Just to add insult to injury, also Luger afterwards having to burn Flash to try to chase down Hayri so that they can't just immediately walk towards it because there's kill threat there, means that there's no Flash, no defensive tool for Luger if he uses that the Gale Force offensively the way he has been for the majority of this game. And already...
Armeo, he was just kind of standing around. I wonder if he's trying to bait them in for the fight. The Crescent Strike was able to stop a lot. They got the pull back in on the Kenvi, but he's got the Wild Growth. The backline looking for damage on the boom, but Luger's going to get a lot of damage onto Armeo. Looking at Hayri, trying to get the assassination onto one, but the Cyclone only onto Luger, but look at the damage back on it to Dokla. He has the shield to be able to survive. Looking to see if they can snipe down. Huge play! Look at that! Ayla was able to get Luger, and without him, there goes the fight from 100 Thieves.
Oh my goodness, that Crescent Guard had to have lasted for like 3 times the normal duration because of the amount of autos that Luger put into Armeo there. And that stalled that so long that the rest of Team Liquid could come up and support their jungler. And yes, eventually Armeo ended up going down, but it bought so much time that the rest of the team could end up finding this Ryoma. And Tenacity look for Hayri. They're not going to find it because LeBlanc is very slippery. They're just giving mid inhibitor for this, I have to say.
That's a big loss there for 100 Thieves, losing out on that mid lane inhibitor. Now wide open, Hayri was able to get so much attention, and he is doing so much work on this LeBlanc, dodging away. The chain's connected, the orb takes the kill, 1-for-1, but they've got the minions in the base. Team Liquid will definitely take it.
And Team Liquid is making this excruciatingly difficult now for 100 Thieves, despite the fact that they've got this really good team fighting composition. You see how easy it is to just tear it apart. Mail was just standing there for a second. But look how long this Crescent Guard, it's still going, still going, still going, still going, still going, until right there. And now look where the entire team is, because Dokla, Hayri are ready for the flank, and then Kenvi has to go golden in front of everybody else. Yes, Armeo goes down. There's so much space that got bought, and then Dokla gets to challenge into Luger, who gets really aggressive in this fight to walk forward. You just can't do that with the amount of damage that Team Liquid's got. That hook from Ayla, too. Fantastic to set up that pick and get that Kog'Maw out so that the rest of this team can continue with this aggression.
Honestly, that was just a great fight. It looked a little funky from Armeo, but honestly, I think it works. It works if you're able to bait them into a full-on fight, into a choke like that. They got the cleanse early from Luger, and there's still no tails for Poom to make sure they have the additional... y'all know he's got an easy lantern to be able to survive, and they even have Dokla threatening a flank into the backline once more. Going to be body blocked by Tenacity, but just look for the Cyclone. They're going to be able to get the kill on Genvi. The rest of 100 Thieves completely bailing out of the fight. They don't feel like they have enough to heal used to get a little bit of movement speed, as Hayri only going to stick the Poom on the way out and making sure they're forced back dead again.
Oh, Kenvi wanted the engage, and I was really excited for it for a second, but again, Ayla is just too good on this Thresh with the Lantern readily available to deny that engagement and then immediately get pushed off because the rest of the team can't step up. And that's a lot because of Dokla, who's able to set up these really good flanks with Wukong to threaten Luger and Ryoma in this backline and Boom in this backline to prevent them from stepping up to support their jungler and try to throw damage into the members who are bringing him down. So that's like the second, third time that that's happened, where Kenvi's dive has not gotten much, and Dokla's threatened dive has really denied a lot of access for 100 Thieves. As Team Liquid is playing this out gorgeously, their divers are accomplishing so much.
And, I mean, they're accomplishing so much that Luger felt like he had to build the Randuin's Omen just to make sure to survive long enough to get damage back onto Team Liquid. And that's forfeiting going for that the damage that you're talking about. Sure, you got the Wit's End, but you kind of need that Randuin's Omen to be able to... I know, Runon's Hurricane to be able to spread out the damage on enough targets of Team Liquid.
There's so much safety on Luger right now, but the damage, it's a trade-off where it's like, okay, if you go more DPS, you're more likely to die. But if you die in fights, you're not doing any damage anyway, and if you're giving more time for them to kill you, that's a problem. Okay, they're first on this dragon. Dokla has left top lane. It's TP very deep from Dokla on that bottom side to look for a flank and see if they can find this. Luger's in some dire straits, so they're turning off this and looking for an engagement.
Look and see if he can get the Moonlight to connect. If not, Yon whiffed completely, but Dokla and Hayri, they're enough of a threat onto Kenvi, who's only level 14. They've got the damage on top of him. Goes Golden to be able to survive, but they're going to be able to get the killing spree they need to. The flash is coming in! Huge amount of damage in from Team Liquid to completely wipe clean the face of 100 Thieves.
Blank on multiple angles there. Team Liquid plays it out perfectly. It was tough. 100 Thieves has a very good composition for fighting late game, but they make it work with multiple dive threats, not allowing ever for 100 Thieves to get the fight that they're looking for. This dragon stacking was also painful. The Mountain Soul didn't exactly do it, but it certainly didn't help things as they have gotten through. And now 100 Thieves, they take the loss, threatened by Team Liquid, our third place team, to go down 0-2.
It is a potential that we see an 0-2 week for the first one ever for the summer split of 100 Thieves Academy with Team Liquid. It looked like it was going to be a rough mid part of the game, especially with Luger getting so much damage onto Yon. But man, the flanks in from Harry, the flanks in from Dokla, those were so great to just pick apart 100 Thieves.
The creativity of those fights from the side of Team Liquid was amazing, and the number of times. You also have to shoot back too. Remember 100 Thieves, they had a chance around that Mountain Drake when they won a fight, went to Baron, and Kenvi ends up getting picked, so Harry might have saved that game almost entirely, because you think of the gold advantage that they would have gotten from taking the Baron and also taking towers off the back of the Baron push that came afterwards, and man, that could have looked like a completely different game were it not for Harry's LeBlanc, so big props to him being able to save the game for Team Liquid and bring it back, so it was easy for them to close things out.
And this is one of those questions for the side of 100 Thieves, as how you bounce back from a game like that, where I like their composition personally. It looked like they had this good early game, this good mid game too. Especially Luger, the damage that he was able to get. We talked about how Kogba, it's not like he used to be where he had to get to the late game. He is pretty powerful in that mid game, but it just wasn't enough to overcome the obstacles that were put by their adversaries.
I think they got shut down a little bit too much early, where like these resources went into Kog'Maw, but Kog'Maw was behind, so they evened Kog'Maw up to the level. But the thing was, like, if they put those same resources into Jace, or if they put those same resources into like, Gragas or something, maybe they got more damage, maybe they've got more team fight presence to expand their gold lead more. Because I don't know if they could have actually contested on bottom side, given the way bottom lane was going from that level 2 mark, where the push was always pretty much in favor of Aphelios. But if you've got 2-3 champions that have more gold, like Kenvi, or if you've got Ryoma faster into that game, those fights might look different around those areas. Maybe you can force.
Yeah, you just don't know. We'll have to see what they're going to be able to do. For now, we'll toss it to a break. We'll be right back for some replays. So stick around.